So in Matthew chapter 2, if you haven't read it yet, go ahead and read it. Pause the video, read it, and then come back. Because we're not going to do in-depth verse by verse, but there's just a few things in Matthew 2 that I thought was really interesting to learn about. If you open up to Matthew 2 and you read the first, let's see. So verses 1 through 12, it kind of lays the foundation. The Magi visit Herod. So Herod was king and ruler at the time, and he was evil. He wanted people to worship him, and it says in verse 3, he was disturbed when he found out that the Messiah was born. He was jealous. And it said in verse 4, he had called together all the people, chief priests and teachers of the law, and asked them where the Messiah was to be born. And they told him in Bethlehem. And then he called the Magi, and in the Bible, they are the wise men. And chief of priests, he called them all, it says, and he called the Magi secretly. He found out the exact time the star had appeared, and he sent them to Bethlehem. This is verse 7. And he told them, go look for the child. When you find him, let me know, so that I may go and worship him. He was lying, obviously. He wanted to kill the Messiah. He wanted to kill Jesus. That was his ultimate plan. So Herod told the Magi to, find the baby and let me know so I can go worship him, right? He sounds, he's trying to make it sound like he's a nice guy, but he's not, obviously. Whenever we see a scene of the wise men, we see them gathered around baby in a manger, representative of Jesus. But actually, when I was doing research, and even I've heard this in the past, but when I was doing research, Jesus is actually not a baby by the time that they get there. He is a child. And scholars believe that he was between the age of, I think I read online, please correct me if I'm wrong, between the ages of like 6 months to 2 years old. Again, if you have more information on this, let me know. But at any rate, they got to where Jesus was, and they bowed down and worshiped, which I think about this, I can't imagine what it must have been like to live on the earth when Jesus was here and to see him in person. Like, how astonishing that must be. But anyways, they presented gifts of gold, and this is the thing that I thought was interesting, verse 12. And I find that verse 12 is a repetitive theme in this chapter. So verse 12, that I will read to you, and I'm reading out of the NIV. And having been warned in a dream not to go back to Herod, they returned to their country by another route. So the wise men didn't go back and report where Jesus was. You know, they were warned in a dream, and they listened to that guidance, and they didn't go back to Herod. So let's write that down. And I think it's interesting because there's 4 times, and that's the thing that stuck out to me when I read this chapter last night. There was 4 times when they were going to go back to, 4 times in this chapter where someone was guided by God through a dream. And the wise men, this was the first example of it in verse 12. And dreams are, I have dreams. I think maybe that's why it struck me so much. I sometimes have dreams and where I feel like God is placing something in my heart. And even, you know, all throughout the Bible, there's just been so much evidence that God does and can speak to us through dreams. Joseph, he interpreted dreams. He had his own dream, right? God, not Joseph and Mary. I meant Joseph from Genesis. So Joseph, the son of Jacob, he had a dream, and his brothers eventually became jealous and, you know, threw him into a pit where he got sold into slavery. If you're not sure what I'm talking about, go read Genesis. I have a bunch of videos on Genesis, actually, if you're interested. But anyways, Joseph had dreams, and he interpreted those dreams as well. So that was really cool. And we will read here in Matthew chapter 2 over and over the theme of being warned in dreams. I wish I did not just do that because it's smudged, but that's okay. Let's keep going. And so, you know, they were guided by God from a dream. Let's move on. So in verse 13, again, right after verse 12, an angel appeared. I said an angel of the Lord appeared to Joseph in a dream. And he said, "Get up, take the child and his mother and escape to Egypt. Stay there until I tell you, for Herod is going to search for the child to kill him." So the angel of the Lord appeared to Joseph in a dream and warned Joseph to leave. But mind you, this is probably in the middle of the night. You know, he warned him in the middle of the night to get up and go, you know. And in the middle of the night, that's a time that is not super convenient. You know, who wants to be awoken in the middle of the night and be told to go? But, and I'm just being realistic here, but of course Joseph listens. And I think sometimes God prompts us to do things at times that we are not ready to do them. Maybe there are times that it's inconvenient to us, times that, you know, it'll make us feel uncomfortable. I know I've been there. And I feel like, you know, if you think about it, Joseph was asleep. He had a dream. You know, he was told, "Get up, you got to go because Herod's going to search for your child to kill him." And verse 14, what did Joseph do? Did he say no? Did he hesitate? It said, so he got up. And I feel like this really awesome and active obedience, immediate obedience from Joseph throughout this chapter is really something that I want to implement in my life more. So he got up, he took the child and his mother during the night and left for Egypt, where he stayed until the death of Pharaoh. And verse 15, the second part of verse 15, and so was fulfilled what the Lord had said through the prophet, out of Egypt I called my son. So if we keep reading, Herod realized that the Magi, they had no part of that. They said, you know what? I'm going to listen to God and I'm just going to go. And they left, which is great. And I also read something really interesting. Then verse 19, again, another dream. This one was really interesting because it was like 2 dreams that Joseph had, but let's talk about the first one. So after Herod died, an angel of the Lord appeared in a dream to Joseph in Egypt and said, get up, take the child and his mother and go to the land of Israel, for those who were trying to take the child's life are dead. So he got up and went to Israel. Again, he listened and obeyed immediately. So he got up, took the child and his mother, and went to the land of Israel. And something that was cool about this dream was, you can tell just by reading the chapter that Joseph really was tuned in to the guidance of God. His swift obedience and, just sometimes God prompts us with just like an inner knowing. Sometimes he talks to us through dreams. Sometimes he talks to us through, videos, maybe like a video like this. Maybe like a sermon at church, reading Christian material. And I think that's why it's so important to consume as much of the word as you possibly can, because that is how God typically speaks to us. But focusing on the theme of this chapter with the dreams, it said in verse, let's see, where is it? Joseph was afraid. It says in verse 22, but when he heard that Archelaus, I'm sorry, I'm not pronouncing that right, but that's okay. It's not important. We heard that he was reigning in Judea in the place of his father, Herod. He was afraid to go there. So in verse 22, Joseph was afraid of going to the place where God called him to. Was warned in a dream. So first he had a dream, get up and go to Israel, and then God even specified the part of Israel that God wanted him to go to. And so it says that he withdrew to the district of Galilee and he went and lived in a town called Nazareth. And so God was very specific to what part of Israel he wanted Joseph to go to through a dream. And Galilee ended up being the area that Jesus had much of his ministry, around the Sea of Galilee and the area of Galilee. So in my notes, I just highlighted the 4 areas that, contributed to the guidance of not only the Magi, but mostly Joseph throughout this chapter via dreams. And I just want to stress the importance of not only listening to the guidance of God, because it's one thing to listen and it's another thing to act, but just, acting on it immediately. I think sometimes we can get caught up in what we think may happen when, God always has a plan. He always will guide us. And it could even be through difficult circumstances. I mean, Joseph, he had to navigate a space where, people were trying to kill Jesus. I mean, that is scary. That's a lot of responsibility, the Savior of the world. But we need to remember that, although, yes, that was a lot of responsibility on Joseph, that God is always with us. So it's not like we ever have to feel like we're alone, especially navigating through this crazy thing called life. So yeah, that was all that I had for Matthew chapter 2. I just wanted to share because I don't know, I thought the fact that they were just warned in a dream 4 times in one chapter, I mean, that's pretty cool to me. But let me know what you thought about this video. Let me know what you thought about the cozy vibes. I love this weather. I'm all for fall and winter. But anyways, I post a new Bible study video on Wednesdays and Fridays at 7 a.m. Eastern Standard Time, and I can't wait to study the Bible with you again.